Sunday dinner at my in-laws' home felt like walking into a storm. I sat at the long table, trying to smile even as Patricia gave me the same look she always did. Kelly sat beside her, swirling her drink while her eyes scanned me from head to toe. They called it joking, but it never felt like a joke to me. Patricia asked about my job and hinted that it was nothing special. Kelly laughed at my hair and said she knew a salon that could help me. I kept my hands in my lap, trying to breathe. Then Patricia leaned forward and said I was dramatic and lucky her son even married me. Mark squeezed my leg under the table and said I was overreacting. Everyone laughed. I stared at my plate, feeling my cheeks burn. Kelly smirked, then slipped up. She said that this was not even as bad as last time. Then she froze, as if she had just exposed something she was not meant to say. Silence fell. My stomach turned. I knew there was more. Something they had been doing behind my back. Something Mark knew about. The shame turned into suspicion, and I went quiet for the rest of the night. When we got home, I still felt the sting of their laughter on my skin. I waited for Mark to say something. Anything. He just took off his jacket and turned on the lights like nothing had happened. I finally told him I felt hurt and humiliated. I told him that Patricia and Kelly crossed a line. Instead of listening, he sighed and said I was emotional. He repeated that his family was only teasing and I needed to stop turning everything into a fight. My heart sank. While he talked, his phone lit up on the counter. A preview showed a message from a group chat named Sunday Squad. There was a laughing emoji beside my name. My breath caught. I reached for the phone, but Mark grabbed it too fast. He hid the screen and said it was nothing. His voice was too tight and too quick. Something in his eyes made my suspicion grow. I no longer felt confused. I felt betrayed. I walked to the bedroom without another word. If they were laughing at me during dinner, what else had they been saying when I was not around? I lay in bed and my mind pulled up memories I had ignored for years. There had been so many tiny cuts, so many moments I brushed aside because I wanted peace. I remembered Patricia saying my apartment neighborhood looked sketchy. She said it loud at a family barbecue, and Mark told me she did not mean it. I remembered Kelly joking that my parents would look out of place at a country club. She claimed she was just teasing me. Mark reminded me that her humor was sharp. I remembered how I always tried to let things slide so the family could get along. Every memory now hit harder. It was not a one-time thing. It was a pattern. A long chain of insults dressed up as jokes. A long chain of me swallowing my feelings while Mark kept the peace by letting them say whatever they wanted. The more I replayed these moments, the more I realized I had been trained to question myself. I had been trained to believe I was too sensitive. But I was not imagining anything. I was not overreacting. I was finally seeing the truth without brushing it aside. The next day, Mark convinced me to visit his parents again. He said it would help us move past the argument. I did not want to go, but he kept insisting it would be good to hear them apologize. When we arrived, Patricia welcomed us with a smile that did not reach her eyes. She said sorry that I felt hurt. Not sorry for what she said. Sorry that I reacted. She added that I embarrassed her in front of the neighbors who passed by during dinner. Kelly crossed her arms and said I needed to learn to take a joke if I wanted to fit into the family. I felt my chest tighten. When I said their words hurt me, Patricia only raised her eyebrows. Mark stepped in and tried to smooth things over. He said we should forget the whole thing and move on. Patricia and Kelly exchanged a smug look. A look that said they believed they were right. A look that said nothing would change. I sat there and felt a shift inside me. They had no interest in treating me with respect. And Mark had no interest in standing beside me. Later that week, Mark came home and dropped his laptop on the couch before heading into the shower. I picked up the blanket when I saw the screen light up with a message from the Sunday Squad chat. Kelly had written that she could not believe I cried over dinner. My stomach flipped. My hands shook as I opened the laptop. The chat was filled with messages from months ago. They mocked my clothes. They mocked my cooking. They even talked about private things Mark and I argued about at home. I saw jokes about my parents. I saw rude comments about my job. Some messages came from Patricia. Many came from Kelly. But the worst part was that Mark joined in. He wrote things about me as if I was nothing. I screenshot everything. Every insult. Every joke. Every moment he betrayed me. I emailed the screenshots to myself, feeling sick. When Mark walked out and saw the open chat, his face went pale. He froze. And in that moment I knew he had no idea how much I now knew. I confronted him with the screenshots. I expected shock or shame. I expected him to realize how cruel the chat was. But he focused on something else. He said I should not have opened his messages. He said I was invading his privacy. I stared at him in disbelief. He said his family was allowed to vent. He said they were only being dramatic. He said I was blowing everything out of proportion. When I pointed out that he shared private details of our marriage with them, he brushed it off and said I was too sensitive. The argument grew louder until he grabbed his keys and said he needed to cool off. He walked out, leaving me surrounded by the proof of how little he respected me. I sat on the floor with the screenshots open on my laptop. Every cruel message felt like a bruise. The man who promised to love me had shared my pain like gossip. And now he was angry at me instead of at his own behavior. I needed someone who would not tell me I was imagining things. I called my best friend Maya. My voice shook as I told her everything. She did not interrupt. She just listened. I sent her the screenshots and waited while she read them. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady. She said this was not a normal family drama. This was emotional abuse. She told me that Patricia and Kelly had been picking at me for years and Mark did nothing to protect me. She told me that he even helped them by giving them information to laugh at. Maya told me to start documenting everything. She said documentation would help me make choices later. She suggested therapy to help me see my situation clearly. Before we hung up, she said something that I could not stop thinking about. She said that if they were bold enough to write those things in a group chat, then they probably said much worse when I was not around. That thought stayed in my chest all night. The next day, Mark came home acting calm and gentle. He sat beside me on the couch and said Patricia was worried. He said they thought I might try to ruin the family reputation by sharing the chat. He told me that if I loved him, I would delete the screenshots. He promised to talk to his family about respecting me more. He spoke softly, but I felt the pressure behind every word. He cared more about their image than my feelings. I nodded but agreed to nothing. When he left the room to take a call, I quietly backed up the screenshots to a private cloud folder. I saved them in 2 places. I made sure nothing could disappear. As I closed my phone, I realized something important. He never asked how I felt. He never apologized. He only wanted me to protect them. That was when I knew things had shifted for good. To test where Mark stood, I agreed to go to another family dinner. I walked in with calm eyes and steady breath. I was no longer trying to win them over. I only wanted to see everything clearly. Patricia acted polite at first. She asked about my work with a fake sweet smile. But soon she slipped in small insults. She hinted that I did not manage money well. She hinted that my upbringing showed in how I spoke. Kelly laughed at every jab. Mark stayed quiet. Too quiet. Then Kelly made a joke about me reading their messages. Her eyes widened the moment she said it. It was clear she knew something she should not. Silence fell across the table. Patricia looked at her. Kelly looked at Mark. and I looked at all of them. Now the truth was out. Mark had told them everything. The room felt heavy. I sat back in my chair and waited to see what would happen next. I asked Kelly how she knew I read the messages. I had never told her. Kelly tried to talk fast, but she was not fast enough. She said Mark explained everything in the family chat. The air changed. Mark stiffened. Patricia demanded to know what screenshots Kelly was talking about. Kelly complained that I made them look like monsters. I felt strangely calm. They were not angry about what they did. They were angry that I had proof. They were angry that I did not stay quiet. I watched as they all talked over each other. Patricia asked how many people saw the screenshots. Kelly complained that now I had power to ruin their image. Mark looked trapped. That was when it hit me. They did not care about the harm they caused. They cared about their reputation. And without meaning to, Kelly had just handed me the power they feared. That night I told Mark I needed space from his family. I said I would not visit them again until they gave a real apology and stopped mocking me. Mark said I was controlling. He accused me of trying to cut him off from his family. I said he was free to visit them whenever he wanted. I just would not be there to act like nothing happened. He grew louder. I stayed calm. His face twisted with anger because I was not bending anymore. He grabbed his jacket and stormed out to go to Patricia's place. I watched him leave, and I realized something painful. He cared more about pleasing them than caring for me. His need for their approval shaped everything he did. And for the first time, I saw how deep that loyalty ran. Maya gave me the number of a therapist. I booked a session without telling Mark. When I sat in the therapist's office, I finally said everything out loud. I talked about the insults, the jokes, the chat, the shame. The therapist listened closely. Then she explained a term I had never heard before. Emotional triangulation. She said Mark let his family attack me because it kept peace on his side. She said he minimized my pain to avoid conflict with them. She said the pattern was old and would keep repeating unless I changed how I reacted. She told me to build support. She told me to create financial independence. She told me that I was not wrong. She told me I was finally reacting in a healthy way. I walked out feeling lighter, clearer. For once, I felt like I understood what was happening. Once I understood the pattern, I changed how I acted at home. I stopped pushing for talks that went nowhere. I stopped trying to explain why their behavior hurt. I stopped putting effort into things Mark did not value. I pulled back from the emotional labor. I started going out more with Maya. I opened a separate bank account. I moved my next paycheck there and kept it quiet. Mark noticed the difference. He asked why I was distant. I said I was matching his energy. He did not like that answer. He grew restless. He accused me of acting strange. I stayed calm and polite. My calmness made him more uneasy. The shift in power was small, but it was real. I was not begging him to understand anymore. I was preparing myself for whatever came next. Patricia invited us to a birthday dinner for Mark at a fancy restaurant. She insisted that I come to prove there were no hard feelings. I agreed. I wanted to see how they acted when they thought everything was fine. The evening began with fake smiles and polite questions. But slowly the old patterns returned. Patricia dropped small insults. Kelly made jabs. Then Kelly joked that I probably kept copies of their messages hidden away. Patricia laughed. My stomach tightened. Then Kelly slipped again. She mentioned a separate family chat. One I had never heard of. One that included Mark's ex. My heart stopped. Patricia turned stiff. Mark looked at his plate. There it was. Another secret. Another truth they hoped I would never learn. At home I confronted Mark about the hidden chat. I asked him why his ex was in it. He looked cornered. After a long silence, he admitted that his family kept her in some conversations because Patricia liked her more. He said they only talked as friends. I asked to see the chat. He refused. I asked again. He refused again. That refusal said everything. The argument grew loud. He finally said that if I were less sensitive, his family would probably like me more. I felt something inside me go quiet. Everything clicked together. The years of insults. The group chat. The secrets. The loyalty to his family over me. The way he always made my feelings the problem. I stopped shouting. I stopped explaining. I realized I needed a plan. A real one. A future that might not include him. With the therapist's advice in mind, I organized everything carefully. I saved every screenshot. I printed them. I placed the printed copies in an envelope and put it inside my work bag. I backed up all the files twice. I documented dates, remarks, and fights in a small notebook. Then Patricia called me. She asked if I planned to ruin the family by keeping the screenshots. She demanded I delete them. I listened without emotion. Then I told her the truth. I said that their own words ruined the family, not me. I said I was only keeping records. There was a long silence on the other end. Patricia sounded shaken. It was the first time I heard fear in her voice. They finally understood that I was not the helpless daughter-in-law they could push around. Mark came home saying his family wanted a group talk. He said it was a chance to fix things. Against my better judgment, I agreed but insisted the meeting be held at a restaurant. A neutral place. No advantage for anyone. We sat down at a round table. Patricia and Kelly started talking fast. They acted like I was tearing the family apart. They said I was holding on to things that should be forgiven. They said I needed to delete everything. They said they would be kinder if I just let things go. I did not speak. Instead, I placed the envelope on the table. I slid it toward them. I asked each person to read their own words. Patricia reached for the papers. Her eyes moved quickly. Then slowly. Then she stopped. I watched her face crumble. Their own cruelty stared back at them. Patricia pushed the papers away as if they burned her. Kelly read her lines and turned red. They both looked embarrassed and angry at the same time. The server walked by and paused, sensing the tension. I ignored the people around us. I looked at Patricia and Kelly. I asked how I was supposed to trust people who wrote such cruel things about me while smiling in my face. They had no answer. Patricia accused me of trying to humiliate them. I told her I had done nothing but show them their own words. Mark sat beside me in silence. He looked small. He looked defeated. He did not defend me. He did not speak. I asked him directly whether he chose to stand beside me or behind his family. He could not look me in the eye. His silence told me everything I needed to know. I felt strangely calm as I waited for Mark to answer. He finally spoke. He said his family went too far, but he still felt I was dramatic for escalating things. He said deleting everything was the best way to move on. He said he needed me to forgive his mother. He said I should prove I loved him by letting the past go. As he spoke, I realized he had not changed at all. He still saw my pain as a problem. He still wanted peace, even if it came at my expense. I looked at him for a long moment. Then I told him the truth. I said I would no longer stay married to someone who treated my feelings as an inconvenience. I stood up. I left the table. I did not look back. I walked out of the restaurant and into the night air with a clear heart. The choice had been made. I moved into Maya's apartment while I figured out my next steps. She welcomed me with open arms and hot tea. I contacted a lawyer and explained everything. At work I spoke with my boss about possible promotions or transfers. I finally felt like my life was in my own hands. Mark came to Maya's door twice. The first time I did not answer. The second time Maya answered for me and told him to leave. I told my lawyer I would speak to Mark only in a therapy session or a legal office. Nothing else. His face looked shocked when he heard that I would not meet privately with him. He seemed sure I would come back. He never believed I would actually leave. But I had stepped out of the house of cards he built, and I was not going back inside. In the legal consultation, I learned something new that hurt even more than the chats. Mark had listed his parents as partial beneficiaries on accounts he promised we would share. His parents had helped him buy things and protected their investments by shaping the prenup in their favor. I had signed it in good faith. I believed marriage was built on trust. My lawyer said some parts were unfair and could be challenged, especially with proof of emotional abuse. The group chat was no longer just hurtful words. It was evidence. Evidence that I had been mocked, targeted, and mistreated. Evidence that Mark never protected me. Evidence that his family did not see me as part of them. The truth was clear. They built safety nets for him and shut me out from the start. I felt anger rise, but it was quiet and steady. I deserved better than this. With my lawyer's guidance, I froze certain joint accounts. I moved all my money into my new account. I prepared for any tricks from Mark's side. When Patricia called to say I was hysterical, I simply said judges read words very carefully. Judges would see the group chat. I told Mark through his lawyer that I was open to mediation if he took responsibility for sharing my private life with his family and agreed to financial boundaries. The power shifted again. This time I held the ground. They had expected me to fall apart. Instead, I stood straighter. I was not playing defense anymore. I was taking control. During mediation, Kelly tried to paint me as unstable. She talked fast and twisted the story. But the mediator asked her clear questions. Questions she could not dodge. Soon Kelly slipped again. She admitted the family chat included Mark's ex because they thought she was better for their image. She admitted Mark sometimes vented about wishing he had married someone more like her. Those words came out in a quiet room. No jokes. No excuses. No laughter. Mark's face drained of color. For the first time he looked ashamed. The truth hung in the air. Thick. Heavy. Real. And it came from his own sister. No spin could erase it. The mediator said it was best for us to separate cleanly. Mark's lawyer advised him not to fight me. The written evidence was too strong. Kelly's admissions were too damaging. Patricia shifted from pride to panic. She begged me not to ruin the family reputation. She offered excuses. She blamed stress. She blamed misunderstandings. I kept my voice calm. I said I only ever wanted respect. And since they refused to give it, I would settle for freedom. Mark signed a settlement that was far more fair than they expected. I felt nothing but relief. They had taken from me for years. Now I was finally taking my life back. Months later, my life looks different. Better. Brighter. I live in my own apartment. I have my own account, my own space, my own peace. At work I earned a promotion and my coworkers treat me with kindness. Maya comes by often and we laugh the way I used to before marriage felt like a burden. Sometimes I hear things through mutual friends. Mark is living with Patricia again. His ex has moved on. His family reputation is stained with quiet whispers. I never posted the screenshots. I never exposed them to the world. I kept them in a private folder, a reminder of what I survived. My revenge was not ruining them. My revenge was leaving. My revenge was rebuilding myself with strength and clarity. For the first time, I am not overreacting. I am choosing myself. And it feels like breathing fresh air after years underwater.